I'm Wasim Cornet in Paris. Let's take you straight to Kyiv. The leaders of France, Germany, Italy, and Romania have been meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy. We now have video of their remarks recorded moments ago. Let's listen in.
Я радий сьогодні в Україні вітати прем'єр-міністра Італії Маріо Драгі, президента Румунії Клауса Йоханнеса, президента Франції Еммануеля Макрона, федерального канцлера Німеччини Олафа Шольца. Друзі, ми дуже цінуємо, що ви сьогодні з нами, саме зараз, напередодні дуже важливих рішень, історично важливих для всієї Європи, і я дійсно дуже вдячний, що цей візит почався з відвідування
decisions that are going to affect the whole of Europe. I'm happy that you started this visit in Ukraine with a visit of Irpin so that you could notice what the Russian invaders have done in the city and in Ukraine. The interviews that we have just had demonstrate that our strongest power is union, and this is what all the rest depends on. You were already at the station when there was a bomb warning. It's been the case a short while ago. The Ukraine is constantly living under these conditions, and this shows once again that Russia does not choose when and where they're going to make areas safe. So fighting in Ukraine is a battle against the whole of Europe. We share values, and our unified response is the only response we can have. Ukraine is at the avant-garde of this Russian attack today, but it is not alone. The structure we are operating in today shows this. We've talked and discussed in full understanding and talked about the requirement to strengthen defense capabilities, and I'd like to thank all of the partners for the decisions that have just been made. We've talked about a coordinated approach to support Ukraine from an economic point of view, so both the state and the population. We have talked about rebuilding after the war and a common action to avoid the food crisis that has been set off by the Federation of Russia. We have done everything possible to avoid this situation that could lead to chaos in Asia and African countries because of food shortages. We've talked about increasing this pressure against Russia, and it means more sanctions. We also talked about European potential integration of our country into Europe, into the European Union. I'd like to talk about the defense carried out by armed forces in Donbass, near Kharkiv, and in the south. And I've also talked about the missile attack that Ukraine has to weather every day. And I talked about the number of missiles that have been sent to civilians in Ukraine just in a month. Talking about 3,000. Most of them aim at civilian structures. I talked about our defense requirements. We would like to thank all of us for providing help in this respect, and all of the sending of heavy equipment that we all still need, missile launchers, the anti-aircraft systems, and we're talking about defending Ukrainian lives. Every day of delay, cost in terms of human life and destruction in our cities. Ukraine remains dependent, and the quicker these supplies arrive, the more we'll be able to defend ourselves, because the Ukrainian population is expecting and waiting for one thing: the liberation, freeing of our territory from the Russians. I've talked about different efforts that have been carried out to establish peace, and we note the absence from Russia's side of the goodwill to relaunch the peace process. Russia does not wish to have peace. As I am talking to you, at the Zelensky Palace, the center of Kyiv, Russian troops are still carrying out their offensive combat region. They have fallen back to the south part of the country, and Russia has to understand one thing: they have no alternative. The only potential solution is to find a way out of this situation. And alongside this, Russia is carrying on its attempts to gain more field in Ukraine. Not accept. They wish to break Ukraine apart and break apart Europe and all of the European community. Russia is trying to demonstrate that Ukraine is not following the line and that the countries cannot, that it will not defend certain elements that are essential. So our unity within Europe is essential. Fight and to show that we have this common vision, we could look at maybe the integration of Ukraine within the European Union. Ukraine is moving into status as a candidate of the European Union is a chance to ensure more stability. It's probably one of the best decisions of this first half of the 21st century. And I hope that this decision will be the most strong message and position that we can adopt. Talking about that, a long way to go to stop this. We need to make this first step, and our country is ready to do all it can to become a fully fledged member of the European Union. And all of these people aspire to becoming a member of the European Union. In polls, they showed that most of the European population supports this prospect of integration into Europe of Ukraine. An historic support level position, and it's a good chance to seize it now. We talked also about sanctions adopted by the European Union with view of re-establishing peace. The second batch of sanctions has to be agreed and adopted. Another subject we talked about was all the work we have to do after the war to rebuild the country. To really get Russia to pay for the damages it has caused throughout the war and to all of the populations and companies and cities in Ukraine. Our work is carrying on along these lines. We also talked together about maybe avoiding a world by Ukraine is happy to think of solutions to break blockage in to dispute blockage in Ukrainian ports, but the country at the origin of this, Russia, will be necessary to ensure this happens. We'd like to thank you for everything that's been done to organize the transfer of Ukrainians through different pathways, restaurant, airlines. And this was significant our friendship. I'd like to thank you for the discussions, and let's get ready for the important decisions to come in order to consolidate safety of the whole of Europe. Thank you very much once again for being here.
Buongiorno a tutti. Oggi è una giornata storica per l'Europa. Italia, Francia e Germania, tre paesi fondatori dell'Unione Europea, e il presidente della Romania, Klaus Iohannis, sono venuti in Ucraina per offrire il loro sostegno incondizionato al presidente Zelenskyy e al popolo ucraino. Un popolo che si è fatto esercito per respingere l'aggressione della Russia, per vivere in libertà. L'Unione Europea ha dimostrato e dimostra oggi una straordinaria unità nel sostenere l'Ucraina in ogni modo, così come è stato chiesto dal presidente Zelenskyy. Lo hanno fatto i governi degli Stati membri.
Well, you've been listening there to that press conference in Kyiv. Mario Draghi there, the Prime Minister of Italy, addressing reporters. I believe we'll be going back to that press conference in just a few moments. But France 24's Armin Georgian is here with me on set. We were listening to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy. He thanked the European partners for being there. He said that a number of things, but said that his country was ready for full integration in the European Union. I believe we can go back now to that press conference in Kyiv. Let's listen.
Actually, that's not necessarily what's been being said around the table, is it? With Mr. Macron and Mr. Scholz. Yes, we know in some chancelleries, not just the German and French ones, the destiny of Crimea has been about in many different ways. Some had even feared
questa posizione nel prossimo Consiglio europeo. Il presidente Zelensky, come ha appena detto, naturalmente comprende che la strada da candidato a membro è una strada, non è un punto, è una strada che dovrà vedere le riforme profonde della società ucraina. Siamo a un momento di svolta nella nostra storia. Il popolo ucraino difende ogni giorno i valori di democrazia e libertà che sono alla base del progetto europeo, del nostro progetto.
And we'll try to see this in the releases. We don't have any, in the news releases, we don't have any translation for Mr. Draghi. The President of the Council is talking about the Ukraine coming into the European Union. And just, I apologize, Gauthier, because I cut you short, but you may please continue.
Le atrocità commesse in questa guerra testimoniano con terribile chiarezza quanto questo progetto sia essenziale. Oggi ho visitato Irpin, un luogo di massacri compiuti dall'esercito russo. Sono fatti terribili che turbano nel profondo e che condanniamo senza esitazioni.
Not respected in 2014, and so Ukrainians cannot allow this. Taking territory from a country, they always go hand in hand with territorial positions in the 20th century. Now, within this situation, we have to sort out, and it's interesting, about the type of statement Mr. Zelensky made. As you heard, Mr. Zelensky was very cautious with his European allies. He really brushes them up the right way. He said that we need to negotiate a solution, a political solution. We know the way to accession Ukraine to the European Union. Our ambition is for us to be there. We're doing everything we can to carry on negotiating on essential areas such as exporting Ukrainian goods to the rest of the world, and thinking about cereal to Africa.
Da quello che ritiene accettabile per il suo popolo.
These do not suffer from these destructions, and it's our duty to ensure that Ukraine is able to ensure its defense.
Dobbiamo anche sbloccare i milioni di tonnellate di grano che sono bloccati nei porti del Mar Nero. Ci sono, ho appreso oggi,
it will be sustainable and long-lasting.
Per sminare i porti.
Exporting Syria, which unfortunately is not able to happen at the moment, and is
sono scadenze che ci avvicinano regolarmente, inesorabilmente al dramma.
Time to unlock before the new harvest that comes in September, and so we need to do everything we can to disaster situation.
Perché la crisi umanitaria in Ucraina non deve trasformarsi in una catastrofe mondiale.
We need to do all we can to ensure the transfer and transport of cereal to the various places. And this situation, in no situation should this lead to a world disastrous situation, and this encourages us to concentrate on the question of unblocking the Ukrainian port on the Black Sea. At the moment, unfortunately, Russia has not been made without much goodwill as regards this. So we need to be very brave, and Mr. Zelensky has agreed that we should all act together as a single unit.
It is a pleasure for me to join my European colleagues today in Kyiv for this crucial visit. Our joint démarche reaffirms our unity and solid commitment to continue supporting Ukraine. Romania, as a reliable neighbor and partner and a European member state and NATO ally with the longest border with Ukraine, stands in full solidarity with the Ukrainian people. We mourn the loss of human lives, the open wounds of all Ukrainians that saw their homes, their schools, their hospitals, and their very history under a brutal attack. We are united and stronger than ever, regionally, at European and at transatlantic level, in preserving our core values and the rules-based international order that you, the Ukrainians, are defending so bravely. The premeditated, unjustified, and unprovoked illegal Russian aggression must stop. I was deeply touched by the unimaginable human tragedy and horrible destructions we saw today near Kyiv. I strongly renew my appeal for all Russian perpetrators to be held responsible by the international criminal justice, which Romania fully supports. During our meeting today with President Zelensky, we have discussed concrete ways to further help Ukraine overcome this existential threat. We will continue to find solutions and comprehensive ways to help Ukraine resist and push back Russia. Most of all today, during our exchange of views, we have focused on the need for peace, the reconstruction effort, and the rebuilding of this country's future. Romania's support for Ukraine has been manifold since the very first day of the aggression. My country spared no effort in helping Ukraine and all those affected by the Russian aggression. The government and people of Romania came together like never before to help more than 1.23 million Ukrainians who crossed our borders, mostly women and children. We provided facilities for educational needs and for integration in our labor market. More than 2,500 Ukrainian children have enrolled in Romanian schools, while around 3,000 jobs have been found in my country. Beyond government measures, we have also witnessed an impressive mobilization of the civil society in supporting Ukraine and the Ukrainians. There is no doubt that Ukrainians in need can count on the Romanian people and government for as long as they need. In addition, an international hub for distribution of humanitarian assistance in Suceava is functioning at full capacity and speed. More than 40 international transport missions have been processed through this hub. We are now at the point when we witness Russia adding yet another blackmail instrument to its actions: grains. I firmly condemn the weaponization of grain export by Russia with such a global impact. We have discussed this issue today and also the possible solutions envisaged. As a relevant part of the solution to the food insecurity generated by Russia, Romania is actively involved in facilitating the transit of Ukraine exports and in serving as a hub for grain. Our responsible authorities are working to find the best solutions to ease the transit through the Black Sea port of Constanța and our ports on the Danube. Since the beginning of the Russian invasion, the port of Constanța has ensured the transit of almost 1 million tons of grains from Ukraine. We are also working on opening new Romanian-Ukrainian border crossing points, as well as on the rehabilitation of large gauge railways on the territory of Romania. In addition, Romania also calls for the involvement of all relevant actors, of a coalition of the willing who could support the international effort to create blue corridors ensuring safe maritime transport in the Black Sea. As we discussed today, we must look ahead and start the preparations for the reconstruction of Ukraine. We all agree that the European Union has to play an important role in this effort. We need to create effective tools to this purpose. We are at a turning point in European history. Extraordinary times call for an extraordinary strategic and visionary response. Granting EU candidate status to Ukraine, the Republic of Moldova and Georgia at the European Council next week is key in building a strong and lasting shield around our own values. It is about our capacity to project security and stability in our neighborhood. There is no time left for hesitancy. Our partners need for us to step up our long-term support to help them build resilience and cope with a wide array of overlapping challenges, either conventional or hybrid. Mr. President Zelensky, dear friends, we are here together because we know it is our duty to act. It is our responsibility to keep this momentum and to help our Ukrainian friends forge a new future. Thank you.
Заява президента Французької Республіки.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur le
Thank you very
Président,
much,
chers
President. Dear Volodymyr,
chers amis et chers
dear
collègues,
friends,
mesdames et
dear
messieurs,
colleagues, ladies and gentlemen.
je voudrais tout d'abord remercier le président
First of all, I'd like
Zelensky
to
et à
thank
travers lui
President
le peuple
Zelensky and, of course, through him, the whole
de
of
nous
the
accueillir aujourd'hui.
Ukrainian population for
De par
welcoming
notre
us
présence,
here today.
tous les quatre,
Through our presence here, all four of us in
le
Kyiv,
salut fraternel
we
des peuples
express
européens
the
à un peuple
fraternal
libre et souverain,
um,
dont l'héroïsme
message of
face
a
à
free
l'agression armée de la
people
Russie force
and say how heroic we feel
l'admiration
they have been
nourrit le
faced
respect
with the
et
attacks of
exige
the Russian Federation, and this leads to our respect
soutien,
and enhances
vous
our
l'avez,
support.
Monsieur le Président,
This
vous le
support
savez.
is something that you have,
pouvez
and
compter sur
you
nous.
know that, President. You can rely on us.
L'Ukraine peut compter sur nous.
Ukraine can rely on us.
L'Europe, dès le premier jour de cette guerre, a
Europe,
su choisir
right from the
avec
first day
clarté
of
son
the
camp,
war, was able to
celui
choose
d'une
its camp
Ukraine libre et
clearly,
souveraine,
that of an
celui du
Ukraine that
respect du
was
droit
free and
international,
sovereign in respect with
de la défense
international
des
law
principes inscrits dans la
and
Charte des Nations Unies,
defense of
que la Russie a fait le choix
principles in the United Nations Charter that
injustifié
that
et
Russia
injustifiable de violer.
chose unjustifiably to
Ce choix de la
violate
guerre, de
these
la
rights. So
destruction et
this
du
choice
chaos,
of war,
ce
destruction
choix
and
de
chaos,
l'agression
choice
armée d'un
of
pays souverain pour asservir
the
un peuple
armed
libre,
attack of a sovereign country
nous ne
to
l'acceptons
bring
pas.
under siege
Nous l'accepterons
free
jamais.
people, we do not accept it, and we will never accept it.
Par les sanctions sans
Through
précédent que nous avons adoptées,
unprecedented sanctions that
par
have
le
been
soutien
adopted by us,
massif,
through massive
économique,
support
humanitaire,
in terms of the
militaire
economy,
que
humanitarian help,
de
and
nos
military
pays et de l'Union
aid that
européenne
each
tout
of our
entière
countries
apporte à
and the
l'Ukraine,
whole European
et que
Union
nous
provide
allons encore
to Ukraine,
intensifier,
and that we are going to intensify
nous sommes
further and increase,
et nous
we
resterons
are and
dans
we
la
will
durée
remain
à
in
vos
the
côtés
situation
pour
for as
défendre
long as
votre
possible
souveraineté,
and
votre intégrité territoriale
alongside you to defend
et
your
votre liberté.
integrity,
C'est notre
territorial
objectif.
freedom and
Nous n'en avons pas d'autre
freedoms. This is our
et nous
target.
l'atteindrons.
We have no others, and we will be able to
Aujourd'hui,
achieve this.
c'est clairement sur
Today,
le sol ukrainien
on
que se joue
the
la sécurité du
in
continent
Ukraine,
européen
that
dans
safety
son
of the
ensemble.
European continent is being played out as a whole.
C'est le premier message que je voulais
This is the
adresser
first
aux côtés
message
de mes
that I
homologues.
wanted to
L'Europe
address
est à
to
vos
you
côtés, elle le
alongside my
restera
colleagues. Europe is
autant qu'il le
alongside you,
faudra,
beside you,
jusqu'à la
and will remain
victoire qui aura
so
le
as long as
visage
you
de
need it
retour de
until
la paix dans
victory
une
will
Ukraine
have
libre
the faith
et
of returning to
indépendante.
peace in a Ukraine that
Le
is
visage
free and
opposé
independent. The flip side of the coin.
aux conséquences de la barbarie
So
que nous avons
set
vues
against the
ensemble
consequences
ce matin
of the
à
barbaric
Irpin.
actions that we saw this
Nous
morning
avons ainsi
in Irpin.
évoqué avec le
We
président
have
Zelensky
talked with
les
President
besoins immédiats
Zelensky
dans les
about
domaines
immediate
humanitaires, économiques et
requirements in
militaires.
humanitarian,
La France,
economic and
évidemment, est et
military
restera
area.
au rendez-vous pour y
France is
répondre.
and will remain
Nous avons d'ores et déjà
on track
mobilisé
to
2
respond
milliards
to
de dollars
these
pour le
people.
soutien
We brought together
économique et
$2 billion
humanitaire.
for economic
Nous le
and
consoliderons dans la durée.
humanitarian support, and we
Tout
will
comme nous
consolidate this
poursuivrons les
over
livraisons de
time,
matériel
and we will carry
militaire,
on delivering military
notamment les canons César qui permettent aux soldats
Caesar cannons
ukrainiens
that
de
enable
se défendre plus
Ukrainian
efficacement face aux attaques
soldiers
de l'armée
and others
russe
to defend themselves more
sur
efficiently
le sol
faced
de
with
l'Ukraine.
attacks from the Russian army on
La
Ukrainian
France,
soil.
depuis le premier jour,
France, since
a
the first day,
scrupuleusement tenu ses
has
engagements et à chaque fois que j'ai pris
stuck to its
un
commitments, and each
engagement à
time
votre endroit,
made the
il a donné
commitment
lieu à une décision
for you. It has
et à une mise en
given
œuvre
rise
rapide,
to a
car
decision and
nous
a very
savons
quick implementing
qu'il faut
of
du matériel,
action,
mais il le
because
faut
we
vite.
know that you need
C'est aussi
equipment
pourquoi,
and you need it
au-delà des 12
quickly.
Césars
And this is
d'ores
why
et déjà livrés,
beyond the
conformément
12
à vos demandes, j'ai
Caesar
pris la
cannons that have
décision
already been
que
delivered,
dès les
according to
prochaines
your orders,
semaines,
I have
6 Césars
made the
additionnels
decision
puissent l'être.
to add 6
Nous
additional
allons aussi
Caesar
poursuivre et
cannons and
renforcer
send
notre
them to
action
you.
pour que
We're
les
going to
crimes
carry
de
on with
guerre
further action so that war
commis
crimes
sur le sol
committed
ukrainien,
on
dont le
Ukrainian
monde
soil,
entier a été le témoin, ne
of
restent pas
which the whole
impunis,
world has
et pour que le
been able
droit
to
et la justice
testify to, it does
internationale
not remain
s'imposent.
unpunished, so that right and international justice
La France a très
prevail.
rapidement envoyé sur
Very
les
quickly
lieux de ces
sent
massacres une équipe
on
de
the place of
spécialistes pour
these
contribuer
atrocities
à la
a team of
collecte de
specialists
preuves
to
et
contribute to
permettre à la
gathering
justice de suivre son
evidence
cours.
and enabling the
J'ai
justice
annoncé
system
tout à
to
l'heure au
follow its
président
course.
Zelensky
Earlier on, I announced
la
to President
fourniture
Zelensky
prochaine d'un laboratoire
the
mobile
soon
d'analyse ADN
of a
qui
mobile
apportera une aide
DNA
importante dans ce
laboratory that will
difficile travail.
provide essential help with this
Lutter
difficult work,
contre toute forme
fighting
d'impunité.
all forms of
D'autres pays
impunity.
européens se mobilisent
Other
désormais
European
pour
countries
assurer
are
la
coming
poursuite de ce
together
travail
from now on
indispensable
ensure the
et
carrying
nous
on of this
soutenons les efforts
essential
de la
work.
Cour pénale
We are supporting
internationale
the efforts
pour
of
faire
the
la lumière sur
International
les
Criminal
atrocités
Court to
impardonnables
bring to light
commises en
the
Ukraine.
unforgivable
Face
atrocities carried
au
out in
simulacre de
Ukraine.
procès
Faced
qui rappelle les
with
heures les
the
plus sombres de notre histoire,
terrible
nous opposerons
event
la rigueur
in history
et la
been coming
légitimité du droit.
into in court cases,
Le
we
deuxième
will
sujet que
oppose
nous avons abordé ensemble est celui de la
rigor.
sécurité
The
alimentaire.
second subject is that of food
La crise
safety.
alimentaire mondiale que
The
nous traversons est une
food
conséquence
crisis we're
directe
going through
de la
all
guerre
over
menée par
the
la
world is a
Russie.
direct
Elle n'a pas
consequence
d'autre explication.
carried out by Russia. There is no other
Je rappelle d'ailleurs
explanation for
que
it.
les sanctions qui
I'd
ont
like
été
to remind you
successivement
that the
prises par les
sanctions
Européens
that
ne
were
touchent
taken
pas
by
les produits
Europeans do
agricoles
not
russes,
affect
contrairement à ce qui a
Russian
souvent été dit.
or deal with
Nous appelons
Russian
donc
foodstuffs.
solennellement
What
ensemble depuis
said
Kiev, la
previously.
Russie,
Johnson,
membre permanent
together
du Conseil
from
de
Kyiv,
sécurité,
Russia,
a
permanent member
accepté
of
que les Nations Unies
has
organisent
accepted the United
l'exportation de
Nations
céréales,
organized the export
ce
of
qui
cereal.
nécessite
This
d'accepter
requires
de
the
lever les
acceptance
blocus des
also
ports
to
ukrainiens
raise
par
the
la marine
borders in
russe
Ukraine
et d'apporter toutes les
ports by the
garanties de
Russian
sécurité
Navy to ensure all of
pour
the
l'Ukraine
safety guarantees
afin
for
de
Ukraine
permettre
to
justement la
ensure
sortie de ces céréales.
the exiting of the
Nous avons
cereals from
ensemble
their ports.
confirmé notre soutien à
Together, we
l'initiative
have
du secrétaire
found our
général des
support
Nations Unies.
and the
Notre
Secretary General of the
disponibilité a
United
été concrètement à sa mise en
Nations.
œuvre, comme l'a
Our
rappelé mon
availability
collègue
has been
italien à
given
l'instant.
complete
Il faut
implementation,
qu'il y ait une
as my
résolution du
Italian
Conseil de
colleague reminded us
sécurité
of
des
this
Nations
just
Unies
a few moments ago.
à laquelle
So we need a
la
resolution
Russie
from the
s'est opposée.
United Nations Council, to which, of
J'espère
course,
qu'elle changera
Russia has
rapidement d'avis.
opposed
En
itself, and I
parallèle,
hope that it will change its mind very quickly. Alongside this, I'd like to thank President Ioannis for
nous
his
œuvrons
work,
pour que
and
d'autres
we are
voies puissent
working to
être
ensure that
ouvertes,
other
en particulier
pathways
sur le
are
Danube
opened up, especially
par la
along the Danube or
Nous
via
avons
Romania.
enfin évoqué ensemble notre
And we
volonté
talked
de
together
confirmer
about
par
our
les
desire
actes,
to
au-delà des
confirm
mots,
through action, beyond
que l'Ukraine
words,
fait partie
that
de la famille
Ukraine is
européenne.
part of the European family.
Face à la guerre, je le disais,
With
le
the
soutien
war,
des
we're
Européens
saying
s'est
that
imposé
all
comme une
the Europeans
évidence.
set itself upon us as an evidence, as something evident.
Nous avons, en quelque sorte, tous vu,
To
perçu,
an extent, we've all
mesuré la
been measured
fragilité
and
de la paix,
perceived how weak
si durement
and
acquise après la Seconde Guerre
peace
mondiale,
is so
et dont le
difficult to
souvenir
achieve after the Second World
douloureux
War,
est au cœur de
of which
l'histoire
the difficult
de la construction
memory
européenne.
is at the heart of the story of
Cette
the
guerre
European construction itself. This war
changera l'histoire de l'Europe.
will change the history of
Nous nous
Europe.
tiendrons aux côtés de
We
l'Ukraine pour
will
l'accompagner
stand by Ukraine
dans
to
cette perspective
accompany
européenne,
them in this
comme nous
European
l'avons
approach
acté à
and
27
perspective,
du sommet
we
de Versailles.
lead all 27 during the Versailles summit. And this is what we reaffirmed together with the President. In a few days from tomorrow, the European Commission will set the framework of discussions and decisions that are important ones will be taken next week in Brussels by the Council. All four, we support the status as immediate candidate for accession to the European Union for Ukraine. This status will be linked, and we said this all together, with a roadmap, and will also involve that
Balkans
we
occidentaux
account for the situation of
et
the
du voisinage en
Western
particulier de la
Balkans
Moldavie.
and neighboring
Nous
areas,
aurons dans les prochains jours à
specifically
bâtir
Moldavia.
ensemble
In the next few days, we'll have to build
l'unanimité
together
des 27
the
pour ce Conseil
unanimous decision
important.
that this European Council, it is
Mais
so
à
important.
travers
But through
notre visite,
our visit,
nous avons eu cette expression
the
claire,
discussions that we've had and this clear
fort,
statement
rapide,
show that this is a strong
attendu,
gesture that is quick and
d'espoir et de clarté que nous
expected,
voulons
and that it brings
envoyer
hope and clearness. And that is what we want to send as a message to Ukraine and to the
Il nous faudra,
population of Ukraine.
au-delà
Beyond
de ce chemin qui commence, comme l'a
this
rappelé
pathway that is just
le président du
starting,
Conseil
as
italien,
the president of the
trouver
Italian
aussi des
Council
formes nouvelles
just said,
pour
we need
échanger et bâtir à
find new
court terme
forms
des
to exchange,
réponses
build in the short term
auxquelles
responses
l'Ukraine a droit en matière de
which Ukraine
sécurité, d'énergie, de
has
mobilité,
to have
de
access in terms of
renforcement
security,
des infrastructures
energy,
ou encore de
mobility,
jeunesse.
strengthening infrastructures,
Parce que
or
l'Ukraine
even
partage nos valeurs
as
démocratiques
areas of
et
youth, because
appartient à notre
Ukraine shares
espace
democratic
continental,
values that
il
are
est
part
donc
of our
naturel que
European
nous puissions
space and
accélérer
area.
aussi les
So
réponses
we
de
have
court
to be able
terme,
to federate
en plus du
short-term
processus
responses
que
to
nous
this,
souhaitons
in
pouvoir
addition to the process that we wish to be able to
Mesdames et
launch in the
messieurs,
future. Ladies and
nous
gentlemen,
aspirons
we
à
are
la paix sur
aspiring
notre continent.
to peace on our
Nous
continent.
savons qu'elle n'est pas un
We
acquis,
know that it is
mais
not
des combats qu'il faut mener pour elle.
acquired and
Alors que la guerre
evident.
fait rage
We know
ici, avec
there
son
is
lot
fighting
quotidien
to
de
achieve
morts
it.
et
The war
d'horreurs,
is waged, and there are
comme
deaths
je l'ai
every
toujours dit au
day and
président
atrocities. And I've
Zelensky,
always said
au
this
cours
to
de nos
President
échanges
Zelensky
réguliers et en toute
when we have
confiance,
talked on a regular, trusting basis
nous
throughout
ferons
this
tout
period. We
pour
will
que
do
l'Ukraine
everything we
puisse
can to
seule
ensure that Ukraine
choisir
can
son destin.
alone choose its own destiny.
Car c'est à l'Ukraine et à ses
Because it's
dirigeants,
up to
à
Ukraine
ses
and the
représentants, à
leaders
son peuple,
and
de
representatives and
décider
the
pour elle-même.
populations and people to decide on their
C'est ce
own for
principe qui me
themselves.
guide depuis le
This
début
is
de
the
la guerre
principle that
et à chaque fois que je me suis
guided me since
entretenu
the beginning of
avec
war,
vous,
and each time I have spoken to you,
comme à chaque fois que je me suis
and
entretenu avec
each
le
time I have
président
spoken to you, and in the same way as
l'Ukraine
also that I've
décidera du
each time
moment
spoken to the
où les conditions
president,
seront
Ukraine will
réunies
decide
pour bâtir la
when is the
paix,
best moment
tout
and
comme
when the
elle
conditions
décidera
are
de son futur
together to
politique.
build peace. And that is the same for its
Je
political
dois le dire ici,
future.
Monsieur le Président,
I have to say this here,
depuis votre
President.
élection,
Since your
j'ai
election,
toujours constaté
always
que vous n'avez pas
noted
cessé
that
de protéger
you
la
have
paix, d'empêcher la
constantly
guerre,
fought
et tout en livrant
to prevent
le combat courageux
whilst
qui est le vôtre
delivering
aujourd'hui.
a very courageous and
Que la
brave
raison
fight that
l'emporte
you are
de
doing
l'autre
today,
côté de la
so that
frontière.
reason
Je
prevails on
terminerai
the
ce
other side
propos
of
en
the border.
citant tout
And I'll
simplement
finish
votre hymne qui nous oblige.
a statement by
Notre
quoting your
pensée est
hymn
tellement lourde dans ces
and
circonstances tragiques.
your national anthem that takes on its full meaning in these
Ne verla
circumstances.
Ucraina. L'Ukraine n'est pas morte,
Ukraine,
ni la gloire, ni la liberté de l'Ukraine ne sont mortes.
the glory
Vous pouvez
and the
compter sur
freedom
la
of
fraternité de
Ukraine are
l'Europe
not dead. You can rely on the fraternity
pour
of
faire en
Europe
sorte que l'Ukraine reste
to
libre.
ensure that Ukraine remains free.
Merci.
Thank you.
Заява федерального канцлера Федеративної Республіки Німеччина.
Lieber Herr Präsident, ich möchte Ihnen zunächst einmal meine Hochachtung aussprechen. Die Ukraine befindet sich seit 113 Tagen in einem heldenhaften Abwehrkampf gegen Russland. Die Tapferkeit der Soldatinnen und Soldaten ist groß. Es ist bewundernswert, wie die Ukrainerinnen und Ukrainer sich gegen die Invasion Russlands zur Wehr setzen. Dafür, lieber Herr Präsident, zollt Deutschland Ihnen großen Respekt. Gemeinsam mit meinem französischen Amtskollegen, dem italienischen Ministerpräsidenten und dem rumänischen Präsidenten bin ich heute nach Kiew gekommen, um ihm das auch ganz persönlich auszudrücken. Klar ist, dieser Überfall auf die Ukraine markiert
And
eine
Italian colleagues,
Zeitenwende.
today I am here in
Russland
Kyiv
versucht mit Gewalt Grenzen innerhalb Europas zu verschieben.
to bring you my personal testimony. This aggression and attack against Ukraine is a change in our era. Russia has changed the borders in Europe by force, and this is unacceptable. And this is why Germany, with other countries in the world, right from the beginning, set itself alongside Ukraine. We are providing our support to Ukraine in defending its sovereignty, its territorial integrity also, and we are doing this from a financial point of view and also from a humanitarian point of view by welcoming in Germany 800,000 displaced persons from Ukraine by offering them shelter and protection also. Almost 200,000 Ukrainian children are schooled in Germany. Germany has come back to its traditional stance, or has come back on it. No, it's come back on its tradition, and we have decided to supply weapons, and we will do this as long as the Ukrainians need it. We have organized training courses for the Ukrainian military to teach them to use
Und wir haben
cannons
nun gemeinsam mit den
and
Vereinigten Staaten
various
von Amerika
missile
und
launching
Großbritannien
systems, and
eine
we promised to
trilaterale
deliver to
Vereinbarung
Ukraine
getroffen und werden der Ukraine mehrfach Raketenwerfer geben.
anti-aerial
Sie
IRIS
sehen,
systems to protect
Deutschland
Ukrainians
unterstützt
from
die
threats
Ukraine
coming from the
massiv.
skies, and we agree
Meine Damen und Herren,
with the United
meine Kollegen
States
und
and
ich
with
sind heute hier
Great
nach Kiew
Britain to
gekommen
deliver to
mit einer
Ukraine
klaren Botschaft.
multiple
Die
rocket
Ukraine
launcher
gehört zur
systems. When you
europäischen
see the
Familie.
help provided by Germany
Ein
to Ukraine, it
Meilenstein
is
auf ihrem
huge. Dear President, dear colleagues, I am in Kyiv,
europäischen Weg
bearing
ist
a
der
very clear
Status
message.
eines
Ukraine belongs to the
Beitrittskandidaten.
European family.
Darüber beraten die Mitgliedstaaten der
We are
Europäischen
going
Union in den
through
nächsten Tagen.
an important
Wir
milestone.
wissen,
This will
es
mean
braucht Einstimmigkeit unter den
giving
27
Ukraine
EU-Ländern.
a status as a
Beim
candidate
Europäischen
to
Rat
access the
werde ich
European
mich für
Union.
eine
This will be a
einheitliche
topic on
Haltung
the
stark
table of
machen.
our next week's meeting,
Deutschland
and
ist für
we
eine
have to do everything
positive
we can
Entscheidung
so that this
zugunsten
decision
der
can be
Ukraine.
adopted by the 27
Das
countries.
gilt auch
And
für die
this
Republik Moldau.
will be my
Und es ist eine Frage
stance
der
during
europäischen
our meeting
Glaubwürdigkeit,
next
dass wir
week.
gegenüber den Staaten des westlichen
Germany will
Balkans,
vote
die sich
in
seit Jahren schon
favour
auf diesem Weg
of
befinden, nun
this
endlich
positive
unsere Versprechen
step for
einlösen,
Ukraine. The
jetzt
same
und konkret.
applies for the
Für den
Republic of
Beitritt zur
Moldavia.
Europäischen Union gelten klare Kriterien, die von allen Kandidaten
We are
erfüllt werden
also
müssen.
going to
Das gilt
stick
für die
to
gemeinsam
promises given
mit
to
der
the
EU
Western
vereinbarten
Balkan
Regeln, den
countries
Acquis,
that
insbesondere
have
mit Blick
been
auf
moving
Demokratie
along
und
towards this
Rechtsstaatlichkeit.
target for quite a while now.
Demokratie und
We are
Rechtsstaatlichkeit sind
going
das,
to have to
was
make
uns
these
in der
decisions
Europäischen
together
Union
within the
zusammenführt
European Union
und
to
von anderen
preserve and
unterscheidet.
develop this acquis communautaire
Abschließend
that we
möchte
will
ich noch
share,
etwas
and this is what
Offensichtliches
unites us
ansprechen.
and
Die EU muss sich
makes
auf
a
diese
difference
Entwicklung
with
vorbereiten
other
und ihre
units and
Strukturen und
countries. And I'll
Verfahren
finish off with
modernisieren.
something that seems self-evident, but I would like to
Meine
underline
Damen
this.
und
The
Herren,
European Union has to
die Ukraine
become
soll
prepared
leben.
and be prepared for the future.
Slava
We
Ukraine.
need to be prepared by modernizing, by reviewing our internal procedures. Ukraine is going to carry on living. Long live Ukraine.
Німецька інформаційна агенція DPA. Якщо stand up, please, for us to see you. And the microphone.
Vielen Dank, Michael Fischer, Deutsche Presseagentur. Herr Bundeskanzler, Sie haben vor dieser Reise gesagt, dass Sie hier nicht herkommen für Fototermine, sondern über ganz konkrete Dinge reden wollen, ganz konkret Zusagen machen wollen. Sie haben das jetzt getan beim Thema Kandidatenstatus. Haben Sie auch beim Thema Waffenlieferung Zusagen gemacht? Da gibt es ja eine lange Wunschliste der Ukraine bis hin zu Kampfpanzern und Schützenpanzern. Haben Sie da Präsident Zelenskyy Versprechen machen können?
Supplies of weapons will
glauben Sie, dass Sie mit Ihrem
carry on.
Besuch heute
You've had the
verloren
list of
gegangenes Vertrauen
demands and requests. They're very
zurückgewinnen konnten
lengthy
in der Ukraine, auch bei
on
der
the part of
ukrainischen
Ukraine?
Bevölkerung? Und Herr
Could you
Präsident
give us
Zelenskyy, sind Sie
give a more
zufrieden
concrete
damit,
promise
was der Bundeskanzler hier
to
heute angekündigt
President
hat?
Zelensky to bring back the
Glauben Sie, dass
trust
die
that's
Irritation,
been slightly
die es in
undermined
den
but
letzten
recently?
Monaten
Mr. Zelensky,
gegeben
are you
hat zwischen
happy
Deutschland und der
with
Ukraine, damit
the
ausgeräumt
message
sind?
delivered to you by Chancellor
Sehen Sie
by the
Deutschland jetzt
Chancellor
als
and some of the
verlässlichen
misunderstandings
Partner
that have
und
occurred
glauben
over the
Sie,
past
dass der
few weeks? Have they been
Bundeskanzler
raised and
tatsächlich
lifted?
will, dass die
And
Ukraine
do you
diesen Krieg
still
auch gewinnt?
do you once again perceive Germany as a reliable partner?
Schönen Dank für die
You
Frage.
may be
Ich will sehr
felt
konkret
on
nochmal
the
darauf
part of the
hinweisen,
Germans
worüber wir
so that
gesprochen haben, nämlich das, was jetzt in dieser
that their desire is for
politischen
Ukraine to
Auseinandersetzung
win this war.
notwendig ist.
Thank you for
Und
your
ich habe
question.
bereits im
Now,
Expresssystem
whilst we were
gesagt,
talking together,
diese
yes,
weitreichende,
we did
sehr moderne
deal with this point, and we said that
Waffen, die
everything
uns zur
necessary would be
Verfügung
done
stellen,
and carried out to
ausgebildet wird in
ensure
Deutschland
that we carry
und
on
auf
going hand in hand down
hingewiesen auf
this
Ihres
pathway.
sehr
And in my
moderne Systeme,
declaration,
um
I
lange nachgefragt worden
underlined
ist.
this
Und
point
die
and I
gemeinsame
reaffirmed our
Aktivität, die wir mit den
availability
USA und
of
Großbritannien
weapon provided
mit
to
auf
Ukraine,
mehrfach
including
Raketenwerfer
modern
unternehmen. Das ist genau das,
launch
worum es jetzt
rocket
geht.
launcher
Die
systems,
Möglichkeit,
multiple systems,
Verteidigung zu organisieren, auch über
alongside
längere Distanzen. Und
British
genau das
partners
ist
and
mit all
American
diesen
partners
Waffen
with
verbunden. Das sind die, die jetzt
anti-aerial
gebraucht werden.
defense systems to ensure the protection of Ukrainian cities. Yes, I do confirm this point.
Чи задоволений я нашою зустрічю? Це перша частина вашого запитання. Я дуже задоволений нашою зустрічю, скажу відверто. Я сьогодні вважаю, що сигнал підтримки нашої України
I'm very happy
об'єднання.
with the discussions that we've
І цей
held.
сигнал ми отримали всі, і не тільки публічно, окремо ми сьогодні зустрічались і піднімали ті теми, про які ви вже всі прекрасно знаєте, про які я сказав у своїй промові. Я задоволений тим, що наше об'єднання, про яке ми дуже багато говоримо і вважаємо, що воно повинно бути.
And I'm delighted to see that there is a great deal of unity. We've talked about it a great deal. And this is a very positive sign following the discussions at the table today, and I felt that there has been support on the part of Chancellor Scholz, and I confirm that I am very happy about this, and I really believe in the German Chancellor's desire to get Ukraine to win this war, including the whole German population. I've seen it, I can see it, and I felt it through what's been happening in the streets and in areas and towns in Germany in reaction to this bloody war set off by Putin and the Russian Federation. And I remain confident in our capability to bring to an end this attack. And I underwrite everything the German chancellor said. I underline the importance of the supplies of weapons promised, mainly organize our anti-terror events. Iris systems, for example, these are the ones that we really need to avoid aerial attack against civilian infrastructure, schools, nurseries. 10 to 15 missiles land every day on Ukrainian cities, and we need to protect ourselves from this constant, unrelenting threat. Germany can, of course, be useful in helping us to fight this, and I remain confident that this is what is going to happen.
Телеканал СТВ. У мене питання до пана Макрона і до пана Шольца від усіх українських медіа, які тут зібралися. Ми узгодили це
We have a question for Mr. Macron and Mr. Scholz from all of the journalists, in the Ukrainian journalists gathered together here. We have often heard that all wars end up with the diplomatic negotiation. You said that, in fact, we would have to talk and negotiate with Putin in the end. And you also said that we had to do everything we could to help him to save face to a certain extent. Chancellor, Germany was sitting at the negotiating table in the Minsk Accords. And you know the value of this type of agreement with Russia. Now, these territorial concessions, are they there to negotiate for peace? And is there going to be a red line drawn so that everything can be put in place and Russia stops at this red line? First of all, I want to be clear about this. We are here to support Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, and that is what we do on a daily basis. Now, what is the position of Europeans, really? Since the first day, and in fact even before, Chancellor Scholz and myself, we came here in February first, and after the other. We went to Moscow then to try to stop the conflict. Our role was following the Minsk Accords, as you've just mentioned. Then our position was always clear. Support in all forms, we've just said this a few moments ago, to Ukrainian people. Sanctions that we had never taken in Europe, all together, united. And we did it 2 days after the first attacks. We took 6 series of measures, including solutions for oil, just as an example. We thought that was impossible, with huge lists of oligarchs on the sanction lists, with one purpose: help Ukraine to win, to preserve sovereignty and territorial integrity, and stop this war. But with limitation, none of us have ever gone to war against Russia. Since February, we have not decided together to set off a world conflict. So within this context, we have constantly talked, transparently, often upon request of President Zelensky with Putin, tried to move forward when they were taking place still, the discussions that were being held between Ukraine and Russia to try to obtain concessions to our stopping of conflict, to try to get food safety issues to move forward, because we all feel that is what is essential for us. And in fact, and we hope as quickly as possible, that at some point, in some form or another, this conflict will have to stop. But as I've already said, and always say this, and I'm repeating this, and I said this earlier on as well, the rules and regulations will only be decided by Ukraine and its representatives and their representatives under the monitoring of the new president. So Germany and France will never be put in a situation in which they are negotiating on behalf of Ukraine with Russia. That's never what we've done. And nor to agree concessions or negotiate any concession. So we are trying to provide clarity, bring forward our requirements as a European power, because France is a member of the Security Council. Of course, we're never there to negotiate in lieu of. And at one point, around the table, as Europeans, we'll have to talk about the security guarantees, what will be called to come into bear based on treaties and agreements. And the Ukrainian president will, of course, talked about this on behalf of his people. That's the context we're talking about. That's what a discussion with Russia will mean in the future. And those are the limitations of the discussions that we will have as well.
Vielen Dank für Ihre Frage. Es geht um die Integrität und die Souveränität der Ukraine. Es geht darum, dass sie dem Wunsch folgen kann, als Demokratie, als Rechtsstaat zu leben, dass sie eine eigene starke Landesverteidigung haben kann. Und alles das steht außer Frage. Deshalb kann auch nur die Ukraine, der Präsident, die Regierung, das Parlament, das ukrainische Volk entscheiden, was richtig ist.
Only Ukraine and its parliament and people can decide what is important to them for their future.
Auch für den französischen Präsidenten, wie eben gesagt hat, dass
based only on this situation that we will be able to negotiate peace.
Dass es keinen Diktatfrieden durchsetzen
Ukraine wishes it.
Dass
And my colleague, the French president, has just underlined this. Russia has to understand that it has no right to claim what it is claiming from Ukraine.
Die Sanktionen, die wir verhängt haben, sind
the
weitreichend.
Set by the Russians
Neben all der
can in
Unterstützung,
no
die wir
situation
finanziell, humanitär und mit
or no case
Waffenlieferungen
be
leisten, auch dazu
expected to
beitragen,
fight
dass
by,
Russland
and Ukraine
seine Truppen zurückzieht und sein
requires
Vorhaben
help.
aufgibt.
It needs financial help, but also military help. It's essential and urgent that Russia pulls back its troops and accepts peace negotiations.
Grazie. Mi rivolgo al Presidente Draghi, ha detto oggi è una giornata storica, lo è, questa è un'immagine storica, ma concretamente la domanda sullo status di candidato dell'Ucraina al Presidente Draghi è abbastanza scontato perché lei l'ha sempre sostenuto. Semmai le chiedo come conta di convincere quelli che hanno ancora qualche dubbio. Ma le chiedo a lei e agli altri che Europa sarà
status of the candidates of the candidature that was announced.
Potrà alzare il dito e bloccare decisioni di altri 27 o ci sarà un processo a partire da
the 27 agree on this, do you think, and what does Europe wish to obtain? Is it acceptable that one single veto on their part can invalidate the common will of the others? Is this type of decision-making system correct, right? The same applies to tax situations, immigration issues, and other subjects. Could we have your opinion on this, please?
La nostra presenza oggi è una manifestazione di unità, prima di tutto, e come tale è una manifestazione di quella forza che l'unità mostra. Oggi
Today's
tutti noi
meeting
abbiamo detto
does have symbolic
che
value.
siamo pronti a sostenere la
It
causa
provides
dell'Ucraina come
what shows us that
candidato
there is unity,
nella
and we have
prossima
noticed
discussione del Consiglio
all
europeo.
together
Siamo anche
that
consapevoli
we are
che questo
ready
è uno sviluppo
and
storico
happy
per
to
l'Europa.
give to Ukraine status of candidate and accelerate the pathway that Ukraine is going along towards accession to the European Union. This is an historic decision, I believe, and it is changing the course of European history. We're also thinking about other countries on the list of candidates. Countries in the Western Balkans, they've been trying to access the European Union and become members for a while. These discussions and thoughts are taken very seriously. The accession process that we're talking about, these countries have their own. These countries all have their own specificities. We're trying to be very functional in the way we deal with these files. They all hold exceptional and extraordinary situations, conditions, and we're there to help Ukraine and get through this war and then remain alongside them during peace. The peace that we wish for has to be stable, has to be long-lasting. After having brought peace back, Ukraine will be free to choose of its future. We are united in our way of perceiving things, and we are united to help Ukraine build its future, not only as a candidate to adhesion to the European Union, but in the wider field as well. After having been witness to the exactions and atrocities outside Kyiv, we felt there was still a great deal of hope being born.
Yesterday, I arrived for the third time here in Ukraine. I saw the line of 22 kilometers of trucks, towns of cereals. What's the concrete solution that the authority of Romania can find to resolve this problem that affects
today we saw
millions of people all over the world?
Kilometers and kilometers of waiting of trucks in waiting. What decision could be made to ensure these flows of vehicles is easier and unblock the traffic jams on the roads? President Zelensky, are you thinking of taking part in these important meetings that are going to be held over the next?
Este o problemă care aș putea să o definesc ca fiind în curs de rezolvare. Trebuie să înțelegem de unde am pornit.
We've seen these waiting lines, all of these lorries waiting to come in the country, but also waiting to leave the country.
Prin România a fost, aș putea să spun, chiar foarte redus până acum câteva luni de zile, iar tranzitul mărfurilor care sosesc în România sau din România care merg în Ucraina nu a fost foarte
transfers through Romania was not that high just before this situation at the moment. The convoys of vehicles going across the border to Romania were not that important, but things have changed. It's been a very quick change, and this encourages us to think up and put in place new mechanisms. And so work is continuing along these lines. Cereal moving out of from the ports of Constanța for the next over the past month has increased fourfold as compared to previously, and this is an important increase in the flow of cereal. We are also thinking of using the Danube River and also railways to organize the exiting of cereals from the country towards other countries, but this will take a while. We've talked about this with President Zelensky, and we will carry on discussing this. First of all, I would like to add to what my colleague said. to what my Romanian colleague said. To date, we have increased exports of cereal via the Danube River. It's increased fourfold, and we can increase that exporting amount even more. We can increase it twofold even from now. And this is something that the ministry has been working on. We can see very clearly what has to be achieved to resolve the situation on the borders. In the same with Poland, we are thinking of innovative solutions to common areas managed jointly along the borders to organize the flow of goods. And we can also suggest this to Germany. This is going to be very useful during each meeting that take place. We are invited and we will be there to take place. Thank you, Mr. Draghi, for inviting us to take part in the G7 meeting and the NATO summit in Madrid. I don't remember if we were invited to take part in the European Council meeting of the European Union that is going to decide on the final agreement or not of the status of Ukraine. And if there is this type of expectation, we will accept it with great many thanks. We need to ensure that people do not forget that we are living through a tragedy in Ukraine, and we need to be there to bring our voice to the fore.
Bonjour, Philippe Ricard pour Le Monde. Étant donné la substance de vos discussions, M. Zelensky, notamment ce qui a été dit sur le statut de candidat,
on what has been said about the status as a candidate, do you feel that the problems that have been talked about in Ukraine, and especially about what Mr. Macron said about not, forgetting Russia, has this been overcome? And also on the part of Mr. Macron, are you going to carry on talking to Mr. Putin, especially following the exchanges you had today, or has there been a sort of a stop in these discussions? Is there a stop in the discussions on the agenda? Thank you.
Я просто не впевнений, що питання, чи буде президент Макрон розмовляти далі з Путіним, залежить від мене. Якщо я думаю, що це вибір президента Макрона, це дійсно правда. Я хочу підтвердити, що коли президент Франції розмовляє з президентом Російської Федерації, дійсно у нас є контакти, і президент говорить про підтримку України, і ми проговорюємо деякі деталі. Я не впевнений в будь-якому випадку це.
We are aware of the support that needs to be provided to Ukraine, so it's really down to President Macron to decide on the final situation, carry on or not with these meetings. I'm not certain that today the Russian president is ready to hear all of the different arguments at play and positions. He's adopting a decision before talking about it to anyone. So we need to change this way of doing things. And if this is the type of model that's going to be used, then it will be impossible to get this war to stop. It affects so many people. I don't know if any other leaders in the world could unilaterally force Russia to stop war. It's only through collective action and acting together that we can have the sufficient power to stop the Russian Federation. That's the way I feel about it anyway.
The division in your government in relation to my work.
You had another question for me. I think I answered the Emmanuel question. Sorry, maybe he will answer my question.
I thought this question was for President Macron.
Celle qui était plutôt pour vous, effectivement, merci de revenir là-dessus.
Absolutely, thank you for coming back to this. Now, the questions are the decisions based on the announcement made today, namely about the accession, does it wipe out the problems that we've had about in public opinion about the words that Mr. Macron had and the reaction about the fact that it was, the comments about the fact that we shouldn't be humiliating Russia? We always have open dialogue and transparent relations that are clear and open with President Macron. We talked about the various elements. We've left all of this behind us. We've turned the page. And I think today, President Macron and all other colleagues, Mario Draghi, Olaf Scholz, the Romanian president, they're all here. And they're all there with an open mind, frank, and they're there to support the accession of Ukraine as a candidate to the European Union. We would like to thank you for this. This is a real important result. We can't underline it. It all depends on the common results. And so I hope that 27 will be able to come to this conclusion together. But we have the four main leaders with us today, and they are expressing their opinion in favour of our status as a candidate. This is an historic result, and I would like to thank you for this. So now, President Putin, some of the subjects that pop up, we've always been very transparent with President Zelensky in our discussions and when we coordinate with our colleagues. I'm not excluding that I wouldn't be doing this, though. First, several reasons. First of all, when we're talking about food safety, we need to be able to talk with Russia to try to obtain a move forward from a diplomatic point of view. And secondly, and I don't think the situation is perfect for this, but I do share the opinion that the Ukrainian president has just shared. When there are windows of opportunity on the field, we need to put pressure for discussions to pick up again, and that's useful. And it's what's done each time upon request from President Zelensky, actually. We can see that today the changes on the field don't give rise to this. I'm not saying that in the next few weeks there won't be subjects that justify this. So it is a question that's a useful question, but it's important to underline this. In the end, these discussions will have to take place. We know this. And it is important, therefore, and I would like to applaud in this respect the fact that since the beginning, the person who has constantly asked to speak to President Putin is President Zelensky. And each time we've had talks, and I've called him, he said, try to get direct talks. In December 2019, we were able to organize this meeting in Paris. It was the subject of talks and a great deal of work. And all of this really to say that I think the role that we are playing in this respect is useful. And it is appreciated on a case-by-case situation based on the circumstances. That's the situation today, but we're moving forward with the same clarity as regards Ukraine, and the words that you have brought out have often been taken out of context or twisted, but we are standing alongside each other, next to each other, and by each other. 100 years ago, the Allies helped France to win. France made an historic failure and fought. It lost. So this question of humiliation has always been placed in the context to come, not the current context. Today, Russia is warring against Ukraine. How do you want me to explain to Ukrainians that you can't humiliate Russia? It's not the right time. That's not what I said. I said today we need to win this war. France is supporting Ukraine, of course, so that they win the war, so that they preserve their sovereignty and their territorial integrity. But at the end of the war, according to the spirit right from the beginning and President Zelensky's, you mustn't make mistakes that would have been made by others in the past. We need to be able to say this. As I hear this in the international discussion, others who have escalatory statements as regards Russia, and they're not serving the best cause of Ukraine in this respect.
Merci beaucoup.
Дуже дякую.
Volodymyr.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We can go.
Very good.
Thank you.
You have been listening to to a marathon news conference of the four EU leaders, the leaders of France, Germany, Italy, and Romania, after their meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy. The culmination of a short, hours-long trip to Kyiv and the nearby suburb of Irpin for the first time for those four EU leaders since the war began back in February of